Eye contact patterns. Eye contact is how we read trust. When someone looks at you while speaking, your brain interprets it as honesty. When they look away, doubt creeps in. Liars know this, so they try to control their gaze. But here's the problem. Controlling eye contact takes effort, and effort creates patterns that give them away. Most people look away naturally during conversation. When recalling a memory, your eyes drift as your brain searches for details. It's automatic, unconscious. But when someone lies, they become aware of their eyes. They start managing where they look, and that management feels off. Some liars overcompensate. They lock eyes with you, holding your gaze longer than normal, trying to prove they have nothing to hide. It's too steady, too deliberate. Real memory recall involves movement. Frozen eye contact signals that the brain is working on something else. Construction, not retrieval. Others do the opposite. They avoid your eyes completely, staring at the floor, the wall, anywhere but your face. The avoidance isn't guilt exactly, it's cognitive load. Lying requires spinning a story while monitoring your reaction, predicting your next question, and remembering what they just said. The brain can't handle all of that and maintain natural eye contact at the same time. Watch for the shift. When someone's eyes behave one way during casual talk, then suddenly change when a specific topic comes up, that's the tell. The consistency breaks. The gaze either hardens into a stare or scatters into avoidance. Either way, the eyes stop moving like they're searching for truth, because the truth isn't what they're looking for. Microexpressions. Microexpressions. Microexpressions are flashes of true emotion that cross your face before you can control them. They last less than half a second, sometimes just 1/5 of a second, but they're real. Your face reacts to what you actually feel before your brain can tell it to fake something else. When someone hears a question they want to lie about, their face responds first. Fear, disgust, anger, or contempt might flicker across their features for a fraction of a moment. Then, the mask slides on. The smile appears, the calm expression returns. But that initial flash already happened. These expressions are involuntary. You can't stop them because they fire faster than conscious thought. The emotional part of your brain receives information and broadcasts it across your facial muscles before the logical part can step in and correct it. By the time you realize you should look neutral, your face already told the truth. Liars try to cover microexpressions with deliberate expressions. They smile too quickly after a flash of fear. They relax their face too smoothly after a moment of tension. But the sequence gives them away. Real emotion builds gradually. Fake emotion gets pasted on top. Most people miss microexpressions because they happen so fast. But if you watch someone's face when you ask a sensitive question, you might catch it. That brief tightening around the eyes, the tiny pull at the corner of the mouth, the quick furrow between the eyebrows. The face always answers first, honestly, before the lie has time to form. Hand-to-face gestures. Your hands move toward your face when you lie, touching your mouth, rubbing your nose, scratching your ear, covering your lips. These gestures happen automatically, rooted in something primal. As a child, when you lied, you literally covered your mouth with your hand, as if you could physically block the false words from escaping. That instinct never fully disappears. When adults lie, the gesture becomes subtler. Instead of covering the mouth completely, they touch it. A finger brushes the lips, a hand rubs the nose, fingertips graze the chin. The movement feels casual, like an itch or an adjustment, but the timing reveals everything. These touches spike during deception. The brain creates this response through discomfort. Lying generates internal conflict. Part of you knows you're deceiving, and that knowledge creates psychological tension. Your body tries to relieve that tension through small, soothing gestures. Touching your face calms the nervous system momentarily, like a child seeking comfort. Watch for clusters. One nose touch means nothing. But when someone repeatedly brings their hand to their face while answering specific questions, the pattern emerges. They touch, they speak, they touch again. The hand keeps returning to the same area, as though trying to physically manage the words coming out. The mouth gets targeted most often because that's where the lie exits. Rubbing the nose follows closely, possibly because lying causes subtle tingling from increased blood flow due to stress. The body betrays the mind. The hand reaches up, trying to contain something that's already been released. Verbal distance language reveals connection. When people tell the truth about their own actions, they own them directly. I went to the store. I called her. I forgot. The sentences place them at the center because they were actually there. But when someone lies, their language shifts. They create distance between themselves and the story they're telling. This distance appears through pronouns. Instead of saying, "I didn't take the money," a liar might say, "The money wasn't taken by me," or, "That money? It remained where it was." The passive voice removes them from the action. The sentence structure physically pushes them away from the event, as if they're describing something they observed rather than something they did. Liars also avoid possessive language. They won't say, "my car," or "my phone," when lying about those objects. Instead, they'll say, "the car," or "that phone," stripping away ownership. The psychological reason is simple. Claiming something as yours while lying about it creates cognitive dissonance. Removing the personal connection eases that mental strain. Some liars use third person without realizing it. Someone might have moved it, instead of, "I might have moved it." A person could forget, rather than, "I could forget." They speak about themselves as if discussing a stranger, distancing their identity from the fabricated narrative. Listen for how someone positions themselves in their own story. When the language suddenly becomes vague, impersonal, or stripped of ownership, the brain is trying to protect itself. By removing personal markers, the liar hopes the lie won't stick to them. But that distance is exactly what gives them away. Timing gaps. The pause between question and answer tells you everything. When someone recalls genuine memory, the response flows naturally. There might be a brief moment while they access the information, but it's smooth, organic. When someone constructs a lie, that gap stretches. The silence lasts just a fraction too long because the brain is working overtime. During that pause, multiple processes fire at once. The liar has to understand what you're asking, decide whether the truth is safe, create a false alternative, check if that alternative sounds believable, predict how you'll react, and then deliver it with the right tone and expression. All of this happens in seconds, but those seconds are noticeable. Truthful answers come from retrieval. Your brain accesses stored information and reports it. Lying requires creation. The brain has to build something from scratch, test it internally, then present it as fact. That construction takes time, and the delay leaks through as hesitation. Some liars try to cover the gap by repeating your question. Did I go to the store? Well, did I go to the store? The repetition buys them processing time while appearing thoughtful. Others fill the silence with filler words. The words carry no information, but they mask the fact that the brain is still assembling the answer. Watch for consistency. If someone answers most questions quickly but suddenly pauses when you ask about something specific, that pause means something. The delay isn't confusion. The gears are turning, building a response that didn't exist until you asked for it. Over-detailing liars add too many details. When someone tells you about their day and mentions that they stopped at the coffee shop on 5th Street, ordered a medium latte with oat milk, paid with exact change, and noticed the barista had a nose ring, you should wonder why you need to know all of that. Honest people share relevant information. Liars pile on specifics to make their story sound more real. The psychology behind this is straightforward. Liars believe that details equal credibility. They think if they can describe the color of the car, the time on the clock, and what song was playing on the radio, you'll accept the whole story as truth. So they overload the narrative with information that doesn't actually matter. But here's the trap. When you genuinely recall something, you remember the important parts clearly and the peripheral details hazily. You remember going to the store, but not necessarily what the cashier wore. Liars do the opposite. They remember everything with equal, suspicious clarity because they invented it all at once. These unnecessary details also serve another purpose. They distract you. While you're processing all the extra information about the oat milk and the nose ring, you're not questioning the core claim. The liar buries the deception under a mountain of irrelevant facts, hoping you'll mistake volume for truth. Listen for imbalance. When someone can describe minor details perfectly but struggles with major ones, or when they volunteer information you didn't ask for, they're likely building a facade. Real memory is messy and incomplete. Fabricated memory comes fully furnished. Baseline shifts. Everyone has a normal. The way they sit, how much they gesture, their tone of voice, the rhythm of their speech. This is their baseline, the behavioral pattern they default to when relaxed and truthful. FBI agents establish this baseline first by asking simple, non-threatening questions. Once you know how someone acts normally, you can spot when that normal changes. Baseline shifts happen when deception enters the conversation. Someone who's been animated and expressive suddenly goes still. Their hands, which were moving freely, lock onto the armrest. Their voice, which was warm and varied, flattens into monotone. The shift signals that something internal changed, and that change is usually stress. The opposite happens too. Someone who's been calm and composed suddenly becomes fidgety when a specific subject comes up. They start gesturing wildly, talking faster, filling silence with nervous energy. The explosion of movement reveals discomfort. Their body is trying to burn off the anxiety that lying creates. These shifts are involuntary. People don't consciously decide to change their behavior when they lie. The stress response takes over, flooding the body with cortisol and adrenaline. That chemical surge alters everything: posture, vocal pitch, movement patterns, even breathing rate. The key is comparison. You can't judge behavior in isolation. What matters is deviation from the established pattern. When someone's natural rhythm breaks and reforms into something different, that break marks the moment truth ended. The baseline tells you who they are. The shift tells you when they started pretending to be someone else.
Throat clearing and swallowing. Your throat tightens when you lie. Stress triggers your body's fight or flight response, and one of the first things to change is saliva production. Your mouth dries out, your throat constricts. Suddenly, swallowing becomes difficult, and you feel the need to clear your throat even though nothing's actually blocking it. This happens because your autonomic nervous system prepares your body for danger. Blood flow redirects away from digestion and toward your muscles. Saliva production drops. Your throat muscles tense. These changes are designed to help you run or fight, but they also occur when you're sitting still, telling a lie that your body recognizes as a threat. Liars swallow hard right before or right after delivering false information. You can see it in their neck, the movement of their Adam's apple bobbing as they try to push down the discomfort. Some clear their throat repeatedly, that little cough or ahem that sounds like they're trying to dislodge something. They're not clearing mucus, they're trying to reset a throat that stress has locked up. The frequency matters more than the action itself. Everyone swallows and clears their throat occasionally. But when someone does it 3 or 4 times while answering a single question, or when the throat clearing spikes during specific topics, the pattern emerges. Watch their neck and listen for the sound. That subtle gulp, that quick cough, that slight rasp in their voice. The throat physically reacts to psychological stress, and no amount of conscious control can fully suppress it. The body knows you're lying, even when you're trying to convince everyone else you're not. Anchor points. When people feel unstable, they anchor themselves physically. Lying creates internal instability, a sense that you might lose control or get caught. To counter that feeling, the body seeks stability through contact. Liars grip the edge of a table, clutch the arms of a chair, cross their arms tightly, or lock their ankles together under the seat. These anchor points serve a psychological purpose. By holding on to something solid, the liar grounds themselves against the emotional turbulence happening inside. The grip provides a sense of control when everything else feels precarious. It's the physical equivalent of holding your breath before diving underwater. Watch their hands first. During normal conversation, hands move freely, gesturing to emphasize points or resting comfortably. When deception begins, those hands suddenly latch onto something. They wrap around a coffee cup and don't let go. They press flat against the table. They interlock fingers and squeeze. The movement stops, replaced by tension and pressure. Feet do the same thing. Someone sitting naturally might cross their legs loosely or let their feet rest flat on the floor. A liar's feet hook around chair legs, ankles twist together, or toes press hard into the ground. The lower body locks down, creating a foundation that feels secure even when the story they're telling isn't. The anchoring intensifies during critical moments. When you ask the question that matters most, watch how they respond physically. If their grip tightens, if their body suddenly braces, if they root themselves more firmly to their seat, you've touched something real. The body is preparing for impact.
Memory direction. Your eyes move when you think, and the direction they move reveals what kind of thinking you're doing. When you recall actual memories, your eyes tend to shift in one direction. When you construct something new or imagine scenarios, they shift in another. This happens because different parts of your brain handle recall versus creation, and accessing those areas moves your gaze. Most right-handed people look up and to the left when remembering real events. That direction connects to the part of the brain that stores visual memories. They're literally looking toward where that information lives. When they fabricate or imagine, their eyes drift up and to the right, toward the creative centers where invention happens. Liars construct stories, so their eyes betray them. Ask someone where they were last Tuesday, and if they're telling the truth, their eyes might flick left as they access the memory. Ask them the same question when they're lying, and their eyes drift right as they build a fictional answer in real time. The pattern isn't absolute. Left-handed people sometimes reverse it. Some individuals show minimal eye movement, but clusters matter. If someone consistently looks one direction for verified true statements, then suddenly shifts to the opposite direction when answering specific questions, that change signals a switch from retrieval to creation. The eyes don't lie because they're not under conscious control during thought. By the time you realize where you're looking, you've already looked there. The gaze follows cognition automatically, mapping the internal process externally. When the process changes from remembering to inventing, the eyes announce it before the mouth finishes speaking. Defensive aggression. When cornered, liars attack. Instead of answering your question, they challenge why you're asking it. Why would you even think that? What kind of question is that? Are you seriously accusing me? The aggression serves as a shield, redirecting attention from their deception to your supposed unfairness. This defensive response stems from feeling trapped. The liar knows they can't provide a truthful answer without revealing themselves, but they also can't construct a convincing lie quickly enough, so they shift the battlefield. By making you defend your question, they buy time and avoid having to answer at all. Some deflect by answering a question you didn't ask. You ask where they were, and they respond with why they went there or who they were with. The response sounds relevant but sidesteps the actual inquiry. They're hoping you won't notice that your original question remains unanswered. Others weaponize emotion. They act hurt, offended, or betrayed that you would doubt them. After everything we've been through, you don't trust me? The emotional manipulation makes you feel guilty for asking, pressuring you to back down and apologize for being suspicious in the first place. Watch for proportionality. Reasonable questions should receive reasonable responses. When someone reacts with outsized anger, indignation, or wounded feelings to a simple inquiry, that overreaction signals something deeper. Innocent people might be confused or surprised by an unexpected question, but they don't typically launch into aggressive defense. They just answer. The fury exists to protect what honesty cannot. Story inconsistencies. Real memories exist as connected experiences. You can tell them forward, backward, or jump to any moment because they actually happened. Fabricated stories exist as rehearsed scripts. They're designed to be told one way, in one order, and when you disrupt that order, the whole thing falls apart. FBI agents exploit this weakness by asking people to recount events in reverse. Start at the end and work backward. Tell me what happened right before you left, then before that, then before that. Truthful people can do this. It takes effort, but the memories are there, accessible from any angle. Liars struggle immediately. Their story was built chronologically, each piece designed to lead to the next. Reverse the sequence and they lose the thread. Another technique involves jumping around. You let them tell their story once, then ask about a detail from the middle, then the beginning, then the end, then back to the middle again. Each time, you're checking if the details remain stable. True memories stay consistent because they're anchored to what actually happened. Lies shift because they depend on what the liar remembers saying, not what they remember experiencing. Contradictions emerge under this pressure. The timeline stops making sense. Details that were certain become vague. New information appears that wasn't mentioned before. The story bends and morphs because it's being rebuilt with each telling rather than recalled. Watch how they handle disruption. When someone insists on telling their story only in one specific order, or becomes frustrated when you ask them to clarify earlier points, they're protecting a structure that can't withstand examination. Memory is flexible. Lies are brittle.